From the kangaroo to the koala, Australia is home to a unique variety of animal life. Join us as we explore the fascinating creatures from the land down under. Australia's most famous zoo is the Taronga Zoo, and we'll take you there. Meet a man whose crusade for Australian wildlife has only just begun. Learn about sea animals in the land down under as we visit the Great Barrier Reef. And join us on a trip just offshore southeastern Australia to a place where the animals live in peace, Kangaroo Island. You'll find all this and more as Wild About Animals presents Amazing Animals of Australia. It takes about 18 hours from the U.S. to reach Australia, but the trip is well worth it. Once there, one of the main attractions is the Taronga Zoo.
I think our forefathers showed great foresight to choose this particular area. It's 75 acres of land on the shores of Sydney Harbour with, I think, probably the most beautiful view for any zoo in the world.
Before 1916, the zoo was across the river at a place called Moore Park. The zoo at Moore Park had just one of each animal, like this elephant. But today, these are just 3 of the many elephants that live there. In fact, today there are over 4,000 animals living there. From the tallest giraffe to the smallest lizard, the Taronga Zoo has creatures in all shapes and sizes. As interesting as these animals were, what really makes the zoo special are the native Australian animals. In the hope of finding out what makes Australian animals so mysterious and special, one must go to the Australian Walkabout exhibit. What one finds is that since Australia's animals developed in virtual isolation from the rest of the world, many of them, like this echidna, are found only on this continent. That can explain why those of us in North America have never seen one of these spiny little creatures. A far more familiar animal is the koala. This is a creature most of us have come to know and love.
I don't think that I could ever get tired of koalas. They are the most amazing creatures, and I think probably everyone's sort of childhood toy come to life. We've sent them to Japan, to Japanese zoos, and I'd ask everyone, what is it about koalas that you really love? And they just say, they all said they're so cute. And that was the only answer I got.
Another teddy bear-like creature is the wombat. Like the koala, the wombat is also a marsupial and carries its young in its front pouch. The wombat has been burrowing around Australia for over 15 million years. A more recent addition to the continent is this animal. If you're wondering what a dog is doing on exhibit at the zoo, it's because this is a dingo, an Australian wild dog. The key word being wild.
They're not like your domestic dogs. They are very destructive animals, they need to be occupied all the time and entertained. People that do keep them as pets do need a special license to hold them.
If you do decide to bring one of these animals home with you, be very careful. The dingo will always be a hunter and a killer.
You can domesticate them like a domestic dog, but they'll never be as friendly and as obedient. And there is that instinct to chase and to hunt.
And last but not least is the kangaroo, perhaps the most famous of all Australian wildlife. Australia has 40 different kinds of kangaroos, from tiny potoroos to medium-sized wallabies to reds like this one. They use powerful feet to bounce across the land at amazing speeds. From just a few animals in 1916 to one of the largest collections in the world, the zoo has certainly changed over time. But one thing remains the same. People flocked to the zoo back then, and they still do so now.
It's still very much a recreational experience. We'll never get away from that. But families for 80 years have been coming here. So we still have that responsibility to provide the happy family day out.
When nature exacts its toll on a species, sometimes it is up to humans to step in and save them. This is a place created and designed by one such person. It used to be barren, but now there are flowers, birds, and all kinds of creatures.
This is Warrawong Sanctuary, this little valley here.
And this is John Walmsley, a somewhat eccentric man who is responsible for creating this magnificent valley and for giving these animals a home. 70 acres of land set high in the hills above Adelaide on the southern coast of Australia.
Like everyone else, they say somebody ought to save our wildlife. Well, in 1985, I made the decision that it was my job to save Australian wildlife. If we lose another species of mammal in Australia, it's my fault. That's all there is about it, really.
Nothing like setting high goals for yourself. In fact, Walmsley has made himself responsible for saving the entire mammal population of Australia. But this is no ordinary man.
When I was 7, my father bought 160 acres of bushland, and it was full of all these wonderful animals. And when I was 11, the first of the foxes and cats came, and by the time I was 14, there were no animals left in my bushland, and it became my life's work to do something about it.
Don't let the looks fool you. Walmsley, a university mathematician, made millions in business prior to Warrawong. He then put all of it into building this wondrous paradise for animals. This time, he made sure predators wouldn't be able to wipe out the animals. He did that by surrounding the entire sanctuary with this fence, which keeps out feral cats, the animal which John says is responsible for killing helpless mammals like this one. John's hatred for cats is matched only by his love of controversy. To the revulsion of cat lovers, he has even proposed a novel way of getting rid of them. Does cat stew appeal to anyone? Actually, the entire sanctuary is steeped in controversy. John says the government would rather Warrawong not exist because they'd like to have a monopoly on wildlife conservation.
The Premier of South Australia, Don Dunstan, put me in jail in 1975 and only released me on the condition I not build Warrawong Sanctuary. So the building of Warrawong Sanctuary was extremely controversial.
They released you on the condition that you would not build Warrawong Sanctuary?
Yes.
But it's built?
Yeah.
The condition wasn't really adhered to?
I reneged, yes. I reneged, yeah. Yeah, I reneged on the deal.
Tricky, aren't you?
Yeah. I signed a paper saying I wouldn't, but I did, yeah.
With an attitude like that, how could this man possibly fail? He takes folks on a tour so they can all experience his crowning achievement. Walking through Warrawong is truly like a journey through the wilderness or the Australian bush. One never knows what one will stumble upon.
There's one just to the left of it a bit.
The setting at the sanctuary is so natural, the animals can remain easily hidden. And a few small marsupials like this possum, this potteroo, and this pattymellon are the only ones visible by day. However, when the sun sets, out come other creatures. The entire sanctuary takes on a whole new life. The place becomes teeming with wildlife. It looks like Jurassic Park, but with kangaroos rather than dinosaurs. And this time, they're out in the open, friendly and unafraid. A beautiful place to live, endless food to eat, and a predator-free life. Warrawong really is an animal's dream. And they have this man to thank for it, John Walmsley, the controversial eccentric with huge ambitions. His goal is to have 1% of all Australian territory reserved for wildlife in the next 25 years. He's got a long way to go, but no one should bet against him.
We're 1% of the way towards it at present. We're on schedule, we'll make it there. Yeah.
Off Australia's coastline, there's a place that hosts a wide range of sea animals. Beneath the surface is actually one of the world's greatest wonders. It's called the Great Barrier Reef. And while it seems to be just rocks and vegetation, it's actually very much alive. What you see here is a collection of millions of living organisms that have sacs for bodies and tentacles for catching food. The Great Barrier Reef is the biggest of them all, stretching for over 1,400 miles. Having evolved for over 10,000 years, the Great Barrier Reef has become a sort of underwater jungle, a maze of mystery and excitement, which provides shelter and food for 1,500 different species of fish in every size and color you can imagine. Unfortunately, most of us will never get the chance to swim as these fish do among the delicate beauty of the reef. Luckily, one aquarium in Sydney decided that if people can't go to the reef should be brought to the people. They created an exhibit teaching people about the Great Barrier Reef and all the sea creatures that live among its crevices.
If we didn't have aquariums like this, people wouldn't see these animals and have the wonder and excitement and the understanding they need to be conserved.
Wonder and excitement are great, but what about if we're looking for a little danger? For that, one ventures to another part of the aquarium to get up close with these guys. But don't get too close. That's a man-eating shark we're talking about. Do you believe there are people who actually do get inside this shark tank? It's one thing to swim with dolphins, but this is too much. These men are there to make sure all the fish eat, and to do that, they actually have to hand feed some of them, while at the same time, being careful not to feed them a hand, especially when dealing with the rays.
Well, these stingrays are mainly crustacean and mollusk eaters, which means they eat snails and small animals that can't actually escape very fast. They actually get on top of the animal and they crush it with some very strong teeth. The diver's always wary of those teeth because they can cause a problem if their hand gets caught in their mouth.
There's plenty of food to go around, and every fish gets his turn, even if some are a little bit pushier than others. The rays certainly look menacing, but with teeth like these, the shark is simply the scariest animal in the sea.
The shark does have a fascination for us. I think because in some ways it poses a threat. It's a very unusual animal in the possible way that it can actually use humans as a source of food.
From giant sharks to the tiniest living organisms that make up the coral reef, the ocean is a world unto its own, filled with wonders at every turn. If one is in an adventurous mood, there's an island off the southeastern part of Australia called Kangaroo Island. It's a magnificent paradise with gorgeous beaches, unspoiled by commercial exploitation. People can enjoy these beautiful beaches because they are truly special. And the reason they're special is because you won't see any people sunbathing or playing beach volleyball here. You'll see sea lions, mothers, pups, full-grown males. This beach is theirs, and they know how to enjoy it. Much like a group of Aussie surfers, they hit the waves with a vengeance. Except they don't need surfboards. This is their time to relax, walk around the beach, take in a little sun, and why not? Many of the adults have been out in the wild waters foraging for food. When you're hunting non-stop for 4 full days, you're entitled to a little relaxation. That is, if your kids will leave you alone. Here, a calf calls for Mom and then swims out to join her. And notice how Mom protects her own from strangers who might cause trouble. Come to think of it, beach life on Kangaroo Island is not much different than beach life for us humans. Bring the kids, pack lunch, take a dip, and just bake out on the sunny beach. As you can see, these guys are great sleepers. Yes, the sea lions on Kangaroo Island are indeed champion relaxers.
We are going to see the New Zealand fur seals.
Up the road a bit is a beautiful place called Admiral's Arch, where one can spot fur seals. They're smaller and darker skinned than their sea lion cousins. The formation of the arch is a result of the constant pounding of the surf. A 2-mile hike to the north revealed other natural treasures. Overlooking a cliff, there's a fur seal breeding colony. Literally hundreds and hundreds of fur seals getting ready to breed. Upon first glance, it appears to be a quiet, peaceful existence. This is the closest we can get to these wild animals, only some 30 yards away. However, this being breeding season, the males seem very aggressive, marking out their turf zealously. The little ones clearing out. Some kept a vigilant watch for intruders, while others wrestled and battled for turf. These two kept at it for some time. The seals dip in with a keen eye towards danger. These are shark-infested waters. Natives say it is not unusual to see a shark swim ominously among the fur seals and snatch an unsuspecting victim. This was one sight we didn't see, however. Down the road, a great sight that is always visible is the remarkable rocks. From this vantage point, it looks like 3 huge boulders sitting atop a peninsula. A closer look reveals fascinating rock formations, again the result of weather and surf. One can go to the edge and witness the power of the surf below. A German visitor recently discovered how dangerous it could be. While taking pictures, he slipped and crashed down into the rough waters. Luckily, he was rescued. A far more calming environment can be found a few miles away at Flinders Chase National Park. There, one can see Cape Barren geese. This is a perfect place for the geese and their offspring.
They'll just bend the tops over like that, and they'll make a nest there. It's quite a good nest. It's off the ground. It's away from the moisture. You can see some chicks there now, actually.
Oh yeah, let's go over there.
The chicks are probably something like 2 to 3 weeks out of the egg.
Notice how the chicks follow Mom like obedient children. Only one problem, Dad always puts himself between the camera and the kids. Come on, Dad, give the cameraman a break. All around is wildlife. This kangaroo sure knew how to enjoy the afternoon. And the emu, a large flightless bird, strolled about casually. This bird's huge body is in contrast to its tiny brain. The emu's brain is about the size of a pea. A genius it's not, but the emu is most intelligent in the ways of survival. Many more intelligent animals have become extinct while the emu flourishes. Up in the trees, one can spot Australia's most lovable creature, the koala. Except they're not so loved by native islanders.
The koalas were introduced to Kangaroo Island in 1923 from Victoria, and a lot of the trees you see around us show the effects of koala overbrowsing, where there's obviously far too many animals for the number of trees that are here.
Koalas exclusively eat from eucalyptus trees. They methodically strip a tree bare, killing it, and then move on to the next tree.
There's probably about 5,000 animals on the island, which is far too many. We only need about 2,000. So some have to be removed, and we may have to look at a desexing or fertility control program to control the numbers long term.
Given the vast numbers of koalas on Kangaroo Island, they have begun to render their landscapes barren. And speaking of barren, it's not difficult to find deserted beaches here. On this beach are two very rare birds called plovers. There are only 10 pairs of these birds still remaining on the island. Busily feeding on insects, they seem oblivious to intruders as they scoot along the beach freely. We weren't the only ones observing the plovers. A couple of seagulls also kept watch. These gulls pose no danger to the plovers themselves, but were on the lookout for the plover's nest, where perhaps they might find some tasty eggs. There would be no such luck today. Meanwhile, taking in this little drama were a couple of gilars, Australian parrots. Gilar is an Australian word for fool, given to these birds because they occasionally act clownish. Soon they bored of the beach spectacle and moved on. Kangaroo Island has many remote areas housing endangered birds. One such bird is the glossy black cockatoo.
We're now on the north coast of Kangaroo Island, and we're about to enter the habitat or the home of the glossy black cockatoo. And these are very shy birds that live on the north coast of Kangaroo Island, and they feed on the she-oak forest we can see behind us. A lot of their remaining nest sites or hollows have been filled by feral bees and possums that have increased in numbers. So the birds are a threatened species on the brink of extinction. We're about to walk in and try and find some birds right now. Trying to locate these birds.
The glossy black cockatoo is a timid bird, difficult to spot.
We're listening for... That's one right across there, I reckon. Can you see the mark? Mm-hmm.
Here you can see their dark outlines, but they seem to be very aware of strangers and did not let anyone get too close.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Only against the bright blue sky can one actually get a good glimpse of these mysterious birds. Back on the safari track, passing a kangaroo hip bone, a killer red ant, and a lot of dust along the way. Finally, another destination, Pelican Lagoon, where one such bird sat majestically perched upon its lookout. About 4 p.m. each day, these birds show up for feeding in their own unique way, gracefully soaring above and then skiing in for a perfect landing. People watch as the birds compete for their meals. Wherever their food goes, they follow. And once the fish is dumped into the water, it's every pelican for itself. Sometimes the competition gets pretty nasty. Meanwhile, a seagull replaces the pelican upon the perch, getting a front row view of the proceedings. Soon, no doubt, the majestic pelican will reclaim its post atop the pole. From the sea to the land, Australia is home to a fascinating array of wildlife. It is a place like no other. We hope you enjoyed our animal safari to the land down under. And now, as they say in Australia, good day, mates.